Hi there, Zelda here. Welcome to the Dragon Channel. This is the, first channeling episode, but the second episode ever of the Dragon Channel. So thank you so much for being here. What we're going to be doing today is I'm going to introduce you to one of the dragons on my dragon team that I work with and channel from, and we'll channel a little bit of a message for you. I'm going to spritz this around. This is a Platinum Dragon Aura Mist that I use that helps me tap into my dragon guides. It has flower essences, it has smells, it has color and gem essences. We're just going to start by taking a second to ground. You can do this yourself. Take a couple breaths. And invite in all of the wisdom from this particular dragon today, from Kunderra, and give thanks, as well as calling upon all the wisdom of our past, present, and future selves to be able to integrate and align with this information. I encourage you to take a moment to call upon any guides that are supportive to you in helping you discern and receive messages that are either ones that I share and channel or ones that you get to tap into yourself. So I will be introducing you, at least for now, each time. I'm going to be introducing you to one of the dragons that I work with in crystal, that have crystal homes, I guess is how I could say. So this is Kunderra. And this skull that Kunderra chose to communicate with me through is carved by Vikas Meena, who is an Indian master carver, and it is carved from Himalayan kind of smoky quartz. And one of the things that I found interesting in this, and that if you've ever worked with skulls or with dragons before, is that this is a human skull. And that is sometimes true for the ones that dragons choose to inhabit. They don't only choose to inhabit dragon carvings. So for comparison, when I say a dragon carving, it could be like this one, or it could be like a full body dragon carving. So this is Kunderra, and Kunderra is the leader of the dragon teams that I work with. There is absolutely nuance to that. He doesn't necessarily lead the entire, he's not like captain of the dragon team necessarily. So there are lots of different families, there are lots of different lineages, there are lots of different jobs and paths and purposes, just like for humans. And particularly for dragons, this can be very widespread because dragons are associated with a lot of different elements, including space and time. Kunderra appears in both a human and a dragon form. And one of the things that is true for Kunderra is that he appears in these different forms, both because he is able to move back and forth between those, but also because he has had lifetimes as both a human and as a dragon, or a humanoid being and a dragon being. When he appears in his dragon form, he is a very large, black, kind of iridescent dragon, very reflects a lot of almost like rainbow, like oil spill type of light. And he is a dragon king. And one of the messages that he has shared is about how for dragons, being a king is very different than we think of for humans, that it's not necessarily something that you take or take over, or that you do in terms of having more power or prestige. He explained it as an exchange of responsibility and taking on the energy associated with commanding different parts of power and a larger perspective, as well as a larger kind of karmic load. And in exchange, there is this kind of ability to effectively command that. And so king is the title. He almost explained it like it's not a direct translation. It's a word that he associates with, and that dragons, there's very much this quality of they'll utilize terms of royalty, but it's not necessarily like a blood lineage always, although that also is true, but it is very much like a soul contract type of level. And he chose a couple decks to be able to communicate with us today. The first one that he chose is this deck, which is the Soul Cards deck. It doesn't have any words. It just has images on it. He didn't want to use a tarot card today. Of all of my teachers, the reason that I'm having him come on first and that I'm channeling through him first is that he tends to be very to command and to ask for a lot of commitment. He repeats a lot of times, to sacrifice is to make sacred. And there's this energetic quality of giving time and energy to him in exchange, and to myself. And in exchange, I am able to receive information and knowledge. And he has been one of the most profound guides in terms of sharing more of that cognitive knowledge. And I work with him a lot. You know, some of the other dragons have taken very important and significant roles in different times. But it just felt right to start with him. So the other deck that I am shuffling is called the Poesis Oracle deck. I really, really love this deck. I use it a lot. I will say the box is matte, so it does show fingerprints, especially when, like me, if you like anoint things with oil, it can get kind of like, you know, you can see like a greasy little paws were on there, you know. But look at how beautiful that imagery is. It's very vivid. It is very, for me at least, I like decks that I get a good somatic, evocative energy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull a couple cards, and I'm going to sit for a moment and see if there's anything that Kunderra would like to share. I will say that this is going to be a timeless message. He is going to be sharing this message with you across space and time. So whenever you get this, if it feels resonant, then it is for you. If you're not interested or consenting to receive this kind of reading, this is kind of like your last exit. You are certainly more than welcome to move along if that's not something that you're wanting today. And I totally respect everyone's right to choose for themselves around that. Okay. I'm going to pull a couple ones from the other deck. So some of the first ones that came up, even like the first ones that came up through this message, feel like if you're watching this, there is some aspect of Kunderra is a dragon that responds very well to like a devoted practice and a committed practice. So this is the image of the first soul card. And one of the things that I really see in this is this kind of like the way that the hands are swinging, like one front and one back. You can't actually see the one in front. It's like off. I just imagined it being there. And it almost feels like there is like this person is holding their hand back, but there's no one maybe like there to take it. And the image that I have up here is this like butterfly image. And what the words that come into my mind are really about starting to open yourself up to the wisdom of beings that are around you, like opening yourself up to your guides, really investing and putting your trust in them and knowing that they are with you. I see it that the orange, this kind of like burnt rust color that is in this person's forehead, this person's crown, is also like around the edges of the wings. And that there's this aspect of like, sometimes the way that intuition can show up is through spontaneous thoughts or things that pop into your mind. And it's interesting because Kunderra in particular is a very quiet in some ways guide for channeling, but I get this sense like from him, I can feel this sense of where I physically feel him in the space around me, how his body language feels approving or disapproving, or is kind of like insinuating that I should like keep searching a little bit. And it's interesting because the 3 cards that I pulled out from this other deck were Trust, Wish, and Explore. And so when I'm feeling into these cards, right, and seeing that in the context of this, I think oftentimes of the connection between inspiration and spirit. Not all of our guides are there to just like pump out good ideas for us, and I feel that that's oftentimes a lot of Kunderra's energy. Actually, is he's not really a guide that's there to make things easy for me. Dragons love to deliver abundance and to align your path with what is highest and best for you, but that doesn't mean removing obstacles that are there for you to grow. It may mean removing obstacles that are there to distract you or to make you suffer. And sometimes things that distract us are things that we really like. Sometimes there are things that are fun that distract us, but that doesn't necessarily mean we can't have those things either, right? But I just think of like this aspect of like how you can build and join in trust. When I see this ring, I think of like the things that we orbit to be able to feel trusting, like the way that we stay in relationship to each other. And I also see it like growing, right? And with Kunderra, one of the things that he started showing up and being more aligned and more affirming when I was more and more devoted, when I sat in very reverent and consistent practice with him and with my other dragon guides. And if I had like skipped a day or two, it would be really quiet. It's almost like I would have to rebuild trust because I had said I was going to sit down at this specific time or for this length of time, and then I hadn't shown up for it. And maybe I hadn't shown up for it because I was busy, or maybe it's because I was antsy. I don't always feel like sitting down to meditate. And I imagine you don't either. Some people are always like, they love doing that, and that's great. That's amazing. I totally encourage you, if that's your experience, don't necessarily question that. But sometimes meditation, like, we feel antsy or we feel uncomfortable, and sometimes it's showing up anyway. In this wish card, I very much think about the way, like, the reflection in the water, and this quality of, like, this reminds me of the tarot card of the star, in terms of like looking down into the water as well as the stars overhead. I get a kind of like the healing energy of desire and of what you would like to move towards in your life. With this, I also get a sense of um, that perhaps there are some unrealized dreams or hopes or wishes that are kind of like waiting to be supported. Um, yeah. I also get the sense of, with this card, the Explorer, I'm going to kind of pull another card for that tone because I feel like there might be another. Hmm. So I get the sense that this exploration, while like very mystical and magical, I'm very drawn to the idea of this being an inner journey. Even if it is involving things like astral projection or traveling back to past lifetimes. I do think of like leaping from timeline to timeline with all of these like almost wormholes and these large mushrooms and the kind of distortion of perspective. But with this, it feels very much like, how do you kind of go inwards and wake up and be able to radiate outward from that inner being? I also get the sense of like, how do you build trust with yourself? You know, sometimes building and facilitating trust with our more rigid or stricter guides or our quieter guides can also very much be a practice of like showing up for ourselves in a dependable and loving way. And they can also kind of feel that energy and show up for it. So this feels like a huge confirmation of that energy, in the sense that there's this inner and outer reflection. I get the sense, right, of like, in this, it's like this person's being followed around, but there's this inner and outer imagery. There's also a lot of blue. I'm hearing like the word water almost, and especially with blue. And I'm waiting to see, like, if you see me get quiet, I'm waiting to see if there's any more information around that. But sometimes there isn't, right? Sometimes that's what there is for right now. For water, I'm getting the sense of actually going and being present with water a little bit. It's possible that if we're thinking about your guides and this inner and outer mirroring, that there could be a quality of the element of water being valuable in the guide that you are working with. Um, Putting a glass of water on your altar can be a powerful way to invite this element in. An altar is any space that you dedicate to communicating with your guides or your spirits or your ancestors, or deities. You know, there's this way that an altar, it just like holds a sacred space where you can go and leave offerings and receive communication and have be dedicated spatially. Um, I also really get, you know, if you feel called to the dragon channel, I wonder about your dragon guides. I wonder about water dragon guides and multiple elemental dragon guides. I think about the other thing that comes to mind with this card is a kind of clairvoyance that like you see in your mind's eye and then you allow to come out your mouth to be able to speak the images and the words that you hear and that you see and be able to communicate those outwards. So maybe that is acting in accordance with like your inner guidance or your what you're receiving from spirit. Maybe it is acting upon inspiration that you're receiving. Maybe it is honoring your guides by being an act of prayer or song out of devotion, right? How is your creativity also an offering to the divine? I'll pull one more card. So with this, I really feel the energy of creating a container, a container to fill, a container to empty, a container to be in relationship with that which is shapeless and spaceless and timeless. And maybe that is creating a practice. Maybe that is getting a new journal that you write letters to spirit or to guide in. I just am really struck. Like, I feel like this is both an outpouring and also like a filling up of like energy and spaciousness. And whereas I was like, is it water? Because it feels like water, but it was like, no, it is space. It is space as an element. It is cosmic. It is inspiration. It is air and energy and like that kind of flow, right? And that there's a way that you can just create that space and then receive that, and also be able to offer that kind of limitlessly out without kind of like draining or tiring yourself. I also, the reason I think of containers too is that I also think about boundaries. And sometimes we need to create boundaries around ourselves. Sometimes we have coping mechanisms that are not really serving us, or ways that we're spending our time, right? Like when I said that, like sometimes they'll remove obstacles to being present with yourself. That sometimes means like cutting out something from your life in terms of like, I don't know, like scrolling on the internet, right? Or watching and watching and watching something that doesn't even feel like it's filling you up, like it's just a way to kind of pass the time. And there's nothing wrong with doing that as a resource. Sometimes we really need to. But I do get the sense of like the opportunity to like one of the last cards that came up that I didn't speak to, but like turning a new page on some of these maybe habits or things that are no longer serving, to be able to be in greater alignment, particularly if you're wanting to do something like open to your dragon guides or open to guides in general, or develop your psychic abilities, or be more in alignment with things that bring you joy and satisfaction in your life. So thank you so much to Kunderra for being present. I'm just going to check in and see if there's anything else that he would like to share at this point in time. There's nothing else that he would like to share. However, if you would like to receive more messages, I got the energy of, is there anything else he would like to share? And he kind of had this air about him of like, yes, if they would like to come and hear it, right? And so if you feel at all called to work with your dragon guides to connect deeper to this type of energy, this Friday, the day after tomorrow, on April 22nd, at 5 p.m. Mountain Time, I am hosting a portal to Dragon Wisdom, a transformational portal where you will be guided in a meditation to meet your dragon or dragons, and will receive a crystal and DNA activation that supports you in connecting, as well as we'll be sharing in some community and meeting other people who are on this journey as well. So if you would like to do that, I do get the sense that there is more information that could be shared, not necessarily through me though. And this is something that you don't have to come to the portal to open to that. Maybe it's that after this video, you want to go sit in your own meditation and spend some time in that way. It was interesting to start with Kunderra for this because I will say he's not the chattiest dragon that I've ever worked with. And so I look forward to maybe also working with some of the lighter beings in the future. But I am so honored that Kunderra was willing to spend some time with us. Thank you so much for spending time. As always, it's an honor to get to share this space with you. If you have any questions or you would like to book a personal reading or attend any of the events that I host, you can find a link to my website in the bio. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you next time on the Dragon Channel.